This special edition of Crypto Trader starts right now. I'm CryptoMan Run, and tonight it's all about Ethereum, or Ethereum 2.0. So stay tuned to the only channel that's all in on crypto, and if you are watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button now.
Crypto Trader is proudly brought to you by Element, a full-service investment bank for the digital token capital markets.
Last week, Crypto Trader went to the 4th annual Ethereum DevCon. The DevCon was held in Prague and was attended by thousands of developers, builders, and of course, savvy investors. It was one of the key events in the crypto calendar, and at the event, Vitalik unveiled the plans for the new and improved Ethereum 2.0. Let's take a closer look at what happened in Prague. Welcome to Prague. This long-time European crossroads was a hub of trade for centuries and crossed from Austro-Hungarian control to Nazi control, then communist, and today a flourishing capital that's the perfect backdrop for an Ethereum DevCon. Today at DevCon, Ethereum is unveiling Ethereum 2.0, or Serenity, with a focus on scaling, security, privacy, dev growth, and of course, UX. In essence, here at Ethereum, it's build time. And front and center is Vitalik, who says he's more focused on research and dependent on the community at large than he's ever been. To boot, he's being introed by a song.
Well, he's Vitalik, don't give her a beat, don't give her a beat, he won't give you beat, he's Vitalik, don't give her a beat, you should always assume that he might give it beat, but he might give you some useless Ethereum tokens. Vitalik, we're in everybody!
Okay, hello everyone. How are you? Happy anniversary of the Satoshi's white paper, 10 years. Yeah, so what is Ethereum 2.0, first of all? Ethereum 2.0 is this kind of combination of a bunch of different features that we've been talking about for several years, researching for several years, actively building for several years, that are finally going to come together into this one coherent whole. And these features include proof of stake, Casper, scalability, sharding, virtual machine improvements, EWASM, improvements to cross-chain contract logic, improvements to protocol economics, and like really the list goes on, and there's some power law distribution. So lots of great stuff. So soon, something which is totally not going to be called Casper, Serenity begins. Yay! Right, so what is Serenity, right? So first of all, it's a realization of all of these different strands of research that we have been spending all of our time on for the last 4 years. This is a new blockchain in the sense of being a data structure, but it has this kind of link to the existing proof of work chain, right? So you'd be able to, like, the proof of stake chain would be aware of the block hashes of the proof of work chain. You would be able to move Ether from the proof of work chain into the proof of stake chain. Serenity is also the world computer as it's really meant to be, not a smartphone from 1999 that can process 15 transactions per second and maybe potentially play Snake. And it's still decentralized, and we hope that in many metrics it can be even more decentralized than today. So for example, as a beacon chain validator, your storage requirements at this point seem like they'll be under 1 gigabyte as compared to something like 8 gigabytes of state storage today, and the 1.8 terabytes that trolls on the internet seem to think the Ethereum blockchain requires for some stupid reason. Expected phases. So phase 0, beacon chain proof of stake. Phase one, shards as data chains. So basically the idea here is that this is where the kind of sharding part turns on. Phase two, enable state transitions, and this includes enabling the virtual machine, enabling accounts, contracts, Ether moving between shards, all of this cool stuff. And phase three and beyond, iterate, improve, add technology. So expected features, pure proof of stake, faster time to synchronous confirmation, so about 8 to 16 seconds. Under a synchronous model, you should be able to treat one block as being close to final. Economic finality and safety under asynchrony comes after 10 to 20 minutes. And fast virtual machine execution via EWASM, and hopefully 1,000 times higher scalability, we will see. Post-Serenity innovation, improvements in privacy, cross-shard transactions, semi-private chains. So, launch, there we go. I mean, that's basically the milestone that we've all been waiting for, that we've been working toward for the last 4 to 5 years, and a milestone which is really no longer so far away. So, thank you. What? Oh, sorry. Okay, enjoy.
After Vitalik, a slew of Ethereum community members spoke on all those key components:
Welcome to DevCon 4.
scaling,
Scaling.
security,
Understanding the system as a whole means understanding its strengths and its weaknesses.
privacy,
The people here, they're building the future, they really are.
UX design,
We really just need to sprinkle some UX on this.
dev growth.
How do we onboard the next million developers?
They want to onboard 1 million devs. Yes, you heard right, 1 million developers. And the all-important focus on where they are, the build phase.
Build. So, we have build. This is the tech that we are all trying to build.
Most importantly, they closed out on yet another song.
DUIDL, Casper's coming, Serenity, and new ways to go.
Now, despite all the song and dance, during his address, Vitalik did not solidify a timeline as to when we can expect to see all these improvements. We tried to catch up with him and ask him some tough questions, and despite committing to the interview, he didn't show up. I guess just like everyone else, we're gonna have to wait and see. Now, after Vitalik's address, the community got to work. This was unlike any crypto conference that we'd ever covered. These devs broke up into tracks and took deep dives into key issues. Various sessions all over the place, including the latest updates, proposed gas limits, patches, sidechains, and more. Fascinating to see. And for a quick look, let's cross over to our Ethereum community contributor, Abby Titcomb.
Thanks, Ran. So DevCon is absolutely massive. There are 4 floors with different rooms surrounding different topics and breakout sessions. Right now, we're on the main floor where we're seeing the main keynotes. Vitalik introducing the Ethereum Foundation and DevCon. Over in Prism and Ultraviolet, we're seeing breakout sessions where people are announcing different projects and protocols and initiatives. In other rooms, we see workshops and developer meetups working on different projects like scalability, privacy, even developer experience. We even have a meditation room where people are taking some time away from all of the intellect and conversation to just chill out a little bit. All right, let's go talk to some more developers about their thoughts on Serenity and the future of Ethereum. So what are you building or focusing on right now?
I work a lot on the research of Plasma. We've got some really cool Plasma constructions coming out at DevCon. Really, really exciting stuff.
I work on a project called Circles, which is a universal basic income project using crypto as kind of a trust basis for providing people access to basic needs.
I've been working on a project called Uja Music, which makes artists more money through the blockchain.
My company, At Least Authority, we do a lot with security and privacy.
We build products on top of Ethereum. I've been running a consulting firm in the space that builds like custom blockchain software and decentralized apps.
Yeah, so I'm an investor.
I mostly do branding, marketing, events. I'm an investor as well.
We're increasingly investing in equity rounds.
And what are you guys both building or focusing on right now?
So I'm working on some core identity infrastructure components and working with an insurance product that's about to reach market.
I work on MetaMask. I focus on a protocol called Polkadot. So it's a layer 1 scaling solution that includes this notion of interoperability between blockchains.
So I'm a Solidity dev, so I write the smart contracts. So I've mostly concentrated on the utility token sales.
I started Movement for Blockchain last year, which is organizing hackathons.
So yeah.
All the buzzwords.
Yeah.
What is the most interesting trend you see coming out of DevCon?
I think people caring more about the social systems?
I think in general, people are starting to actually put a lot more specification to crypto economic stuff. So it's really interesting to see a progression of people realizing that there are many trade-offs to make in your trust assumptions and how you want the things to respond versus how secure you want them to be.
So one thing that I've enjoyed here this week is to see a larger focus on privacy and how we need to use security to help promote better privacy features within our blockchains and especially within Ethereum world.
I'm seeing a lot of layer 2 solutions, so infrastructure that will power the next generation of decentralized applications around Ethereum.
I think education is something really important, so when the next wave of users come in, having a set of tools so they understand how everything works rather than trying to figure out, oh, what is this 0x address, what is gas, trying to onboard everyone in a much easier way, I think is critical.
It's not just super technical talks, it's asking questions about user experience and design, questions about ethics and society.
To make sure that those changes are changes for the better.
And what is the most interesting trend that you see coming out of DevCon or in the space right now?
So a lot of the promise that we had 2 years ago is actually being delivered on. So really excited to see the scaling infrastructure improvements, but also new improvements to the underlying technology.
Aside from scalability, excited that the major trend this year is around user experience and design and how can we make dApps more accessible to non-crypto users?
Well, I feel like UX and design lately, it's kind of like the entire community woke up and realized that we need that, otherwise we're not going anywhere.
So that we can actually get user-friendly apps or somewhat user-friendly apps into people's hands.
On the fun side of things, actively participating in the network is kind of a new thing. It's going to become like a fiduciary duty for the holders of tokens to participate. So on the investing side, I've seen that be the most focal point.
I definitely agree that scalability, there's been a lot of chat about that and lots of different possible solutions.
Mass adoption, everybody's talking about it. How do we get more people into blockchain? How to do it? What are the different ways? What problems do we have to solve?
Certainly there's plenty of problems to be solved, but that's why there's over 3,000 devs here in the middle phase working on them. We'll check back in later to talk to more devs. Back to Ran in the studio to go in depth into Serenity.
Now let's take a look at Ethereum 2.0, nicknamed Serenity. And let's talk to one of the lead devs and researchers with the Ethereum Foundation, Justin Drake. This Cambridge-educated dev has been back and forth working with Vitalik on all things Serenity.
Justin, so we saw a vision for Ethereum 2.0 today, which was incredible. Tell us a little bit about what that vision entails.
Yeah, so Ethereum 2.0 contains various new radical ideas. Part of it is around a move to proof of stake, away from proof of work. And then the other big idea is the sharding, so scalability, having 1,000 shards as opposed to just one shard.
Now, the Ethereum community has been criticized quite a bit for being very slow, especially by Nouriel Roubini, who came out vocally in front of Congress and said, Ethereum's unscalable, they've been promising proof of stake for a while. Why is it taking so long, or is it taking so long to get from where we are to that point?
I think there have been mistakes in over-promising, but I think that's just mostly like miscommunication and underestimating the complexity of things. In reality, the research has been moving extremely fast, and we've been continuously getting better designs. And in the grand scheme of things, Ethereum is only a few years old, and we're moving extremely fast. I don't know an industry that moves any faster than the blockchain space.
Now, what are the hurdles? I mean, what are the type of hardships that you guys are facing in this transition from Ethereum 1 to Ethereum 2.0?
Right, so one of the things that caused delay is that we wanted initially to be backwards compatible with Ethereum 1.0. We wanted to build kind of a lot of the scaling within the legacy proof of work chain. But now we've removed that constraint and we're starting from scratch. So in a way that's good because we don't have to work with all the constraints, but because it's freed up a new design space, we've become more ambitious. So we want to put all the goodies in the initial launch, and that is why it's taking a bit more time.
Timing. I mean, how long is it going to take for this transition from Ethereum 1 to Ethereum 2.0?
Right, so I think we will see the phase 0, which is just the beacon chain, which is somewhere between mainnet and testnet next year, 2019. And then we'll see sharding, the data layer of the shards, which is called phase 1 in 2020. And then basically phase 2, which is where we have the EVM and the full state in 2021.
Okay, now we saw Vitalik speaking, and he's really a figurehead for the community still. How important is he in the ecosystem? I mean, is he still the central point in the ecosystem?
Right, so in the last few years, I'd say a lot of his contribution intellectually have been in the research. And I'd say he's the lead scientist or whatever of the Ethereum Foundation. At this point in time, the research has very much matured. And so I would say that if he was hit by a bus and he was to leave, then we could, the existing research team could basically fulfill the vision that has been laid out.
Justin, one of the things that when you look around here, you see the size of the Ethereum community. Are you excited by the growth and the size of the community?
Oh yeah, extremely. I think the community is the most valuable thing for Ethereum because there's so much new infrastructure to be built at so many levels of the stack. Basically, we're reinventing the whole stack, reinventing the wheel, and so we need so much manpower. Having tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of people who are able to build stuff and contribute is unique in the whole space, and I don't see any other project that can compete in the short term with Ethereum. This is like super exciting stuff.
It certainly sounds like you are doing leading edge stuff. Justin, thank you very much for coming to CryptoTrailer. Thank you. Now, after 3 full days of conference, singing, dancing, and even a meditation pod, it's pretty easy to get caught up in the hype that is Ethereum. So I spoke to some of the OGs to get their more relaxed views on Ethereum 2.0 to see whether Ethereum was centered around Vitalik and whether they believed that Ethereum would emerge as one of the dominant chains. Here's Eric Fuhis, and he's a real crypto OG and also the founder of Shapeshift. Eric, so we've been here in Prague for a few days. We've seen all the big plans for Ethereum 2.0. How excited are you about, or how bullish are you about what's going on at Ethereum?
Whenever I come to these events, I get reminded about the actual interesting work that's happening. In the normal social media, there's always a lot of hype, and you can never really see what's real. But you come to an event and you see 1,000 super talented people all working together on really cool problems, and it reminds you why we're here. Working their way down, there've been a lot of people that have been saying that Ethereum can't scale and things are taking too long. Yeah, I mean, it'll either happen or people will move to other blockchains and other cryptos, and that's fine too. I mean, this is a hyper-competitive industry where people are building the future of finance, and there's plenty of incentive in all directions. And do you think that Ethereum will be one of the main chains? I mean, having seen what you've seen here. Yeah, absolutely. It has the network effect and probably more developers than any other chain in the world by a significant margin. That alone might be all it needs. And when you see Vitalik, and he's really a central point in this development or in this protocol, I mean, do you get the feeling that this whole ecosystem is centralized around Vitalik? I mean, obviously he is a point of centralization, but if Vitalik got hit by a bus and disappeared, would Ethereum go away? No. I mean, it would get cut in half in price for a month or so, but Vitalik doesn't run Ethereum. He doesn't control it. He's just a major influence, and he's a brilliant person, so Ethereum is better because he's involved. So I always say that there's 2 markets in crypto. There's the retail market, which is worrying about prices and speculation around the pricing, and then there's what we see over here, and we're seeing PhDs and developers really building stuff. So I'm not going to ask you any questions around whether you think we're going to get out of the bull and the bear market, but I want to change the narrative. Adoption of crypto. Real life adoption of crypto. How far away are we from real life adoption of crypto, real world? It's a gradient. So it's not like it doesn't just happen suddenly. Same way with the internet, people didn't just all of a sudden wake up and be online all the time. It's something that happens over 2 decades. So I think one of the early things that'll actually get mainstream adoption happening in Ethereum is these game assets, non-fungible tokens, and these tokens that basically represent game assets are going to be really popular.
And where else are we going to see adoption? So gaming is one of the big points. We've seen a little bit of adoption around Bitcoin and a store of value.
I think borderless finance generally, so all the financial tools that exist on Wall Street are being built on decentralized blockchains, and that allows anyone in the world to have access to financial derivatives. That's super powerful, and I think that'll be something that really takes off as well.
Eric, it's always a pleasure having you on Crypto Trader. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I always love speaking to Eric. You know, he's been around for 3 bear markets and he's still here and he's still building. And he still seems to be pretty convinced and even bullish about Ethereum and crypto as a whole. Another progression of Ethereum 2.0 is its focus on privacy, the advent of sidechains, and as Vitalik stated, the use of zero-knowledge proofs and Zstarks. We're talking to Zooko, the founder of Zcash, who was on stage at DevCon talking about the importance of privacy and the progress that they've made at Zcash. Zooko, awesome talk on the stage. You guys seem to have made a lot of progress on Zcash since you guys launched.
Oh yeah.
Let's go back.
Thanks.
Privacy, it's quite a taboo issue. I mean, now when you talk about Zcash, do you guys hide the entire transaction? In other words, you hide where it's coming from, you hide the amount, you hide where it's going to. Is that all hidden?
It is if people use the new upgraded features. It's like with HTTPS years ago. We had old unencrypted HTTP and new secure HTTPS. And for a long time we had both running, and then more and more people have upgraded to HTTPS, where nowadays it's almost always HTTPS. Similarly with Zcash, there's a way to use it which is fully encrypted, and that one is fully secure so that, like you were saying, unauthorized parties don't get to see the addresses, the amounts, or any information about the linkage between the uses.
And in terms of transaction times, I mean, have you guys made progress in terms of transaction times?
That was the big announcement that we talked about on stage here. Is we just now, so Zcash is 2 years old, which I like to joke that makes it a grizzled veteran of the space. And we just launched the biggest, like the first ever major upgrade of Zcash. And what that does is reduce the transaction times from 40 seconds to 2 seconds.
40 seconds to 2 seconds.
To make each transaction.
I mean, that's a huge improvement. That's a 20x improvement.
And it took 2 years from our world-class team of like scientists from all these major universities and all these engineers to figure it out, because it's a fundamental improvement in the state of the art.
Do you think you need to get better than 2 seconds to make it commercially usable?
I actually think that's probably good enough for a serious wave of adoption, because now it's efficient enough to operate it on mobile phones, so you can buy things directly from your mobile phone without leaking your behavior to the whole internet. And you can implement it on all the services, all the exchanges and products.
I mean, for me, 2 seconds sounds like it's optimal. I mean, you could probably improve it a little bit more, but is it actually worth it? How did you go from 40 seconds to 2 seconds? What was the magic?
Well, let's see. How much do you know about elliptic curves and pairings and zero-knowledge proofs? Okay, there are basically 3 different components that we had to optimize, and our scientists and engineers figured out about a 50 to 75% improvement in all 3 of them. One of them is elliptic curves and general purpose zero knowledge proofs. And that's really exciting, because that means everyone else in the world can now have zero knowledge proofs about twice as fast as before by copying our open source code. And then the other 2 were the payment protocol specifically and the secure hash function. And we optimized both of those by about 50 to 75%.
And you got a 20x improvement. I mean, that's absolutely crazy. Now let's talk about regulatory acceptance of, well, I call them privacy coins. You took exception to it. Have you had any regulators actually accept it and say, you know, we're accepting Zcash as part of our regulated framework?
Yeah, this is a little known fact that might be really surprising, but the most advanced regulator who is sort of the leading regulator in the entire world is the New York Department of Financial Services.
They launched the BitLicense.
Yeah. What you might be surprised to find out is that they chose Zcash as one of approximately the 7th or so cryptocurrency that they approved for the use in New York.
So what's your next milestone? You've been working for 2 years reducing transaction times. What's the next milestone?
There are two things we're working on. One is just supporting the ecosystem, because there are probably thousands of companies around the world that support Zcash. And then the second one is we're working on the user experience. We're working on a wallet design for mobile first, right? Because the kids these days don't have computers.
We
and
all
only
mobile
use
first,
computers, yeah. And also we're trying to increase the level of like safety and familiarity for normal users, because the current experience, if you're a normal person, you come along, you've heard about this stuff, you want to get into it, and then you try it, and it's kind of baffling. It's scary, it's hard to use, and so that's our current focus, is fixing that.
So to summarize, now that your transactions are very good and your infrastructure is built, you're now actually working on actually getting real adoption. Zuko, it's been a great pleasure having you on Crypto Trader. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Fascinating to see that not only are they making real technological progress at Zcash, but they're also making regulatory progress. And for a privacy coin, that's a real feat. It's also great to see that they're working very closely with the Ethereum community.
Christian, buddy, come sit over here. Now, the advertising offers have been flooding in. Look at the pile of offers I've got here for you. Look, let's just take a pic. Picture this. You're hiking through the Rocky Mountains, okay? And you're carrying gorgeous rosewood designer door on your back. And you look into the camera, and then you say, oh. No, yeah, you're right. It's terrible idea. For the next one, you'll be carrying a refrigerator on your back, environmentally friendly refrigerator, and then your line is, well, actually, it's just one word. We'll put that one on ice, okay? Yeah. This is a hot dog chain. You're carrying this huge hot dog on your back.
Enough! I've had it. No more carrying, no more saying that word ever again. I'm a serious actor. I have depth. Why can't you get me something with like an office with a tie, for example?
Action! Bitcoin is crashing. We have to sell
Bitcoin is a bubble! Hodl. 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 I have to find a new agent.
Now, speaking of communities, people often talk about the power of the Ethereum community. Let's go back to Abby to get an inside take on what makes them so strong on the conference floor. Abby, back to you.
We're here in the heart and soul of DevCon, surrounded by thousands of builders, researchers, and developers building towards the future of Ethereum. Vitalik started off the conference saying that he wanted to onboard 1 million developers to the Ethereum platform. Let's talk to some of them about what they think. And what do you think is so unique about the Ethereum developer community?
I think the coolest thing about this community is that there's intersection from cryptographers and from just people who are philosophers and care about the way that we're going to influence society.
So you get this really weird cross-pollination of expertise.
Like philosophers and anthropologists,
Yeah. It's just, that's probably what makes it so fucking cool.
Also cool, if I can just break in here for a second, was the view. Just take a look at Prague for a bit, right out the window before sunset hits.
And why do you think the Ethereum developer community is so unique?
I'd say the leadership within the Ethereum, I know it's decentralized, but foundation is very on the ground and accessible. So Vitalik, Vlad, Carl, all these people are at all of the conferences, and you can go up to them and speak to them and learn.
If someone's come up with a good idea of how to improve security or improve gas efficiency, they talk about it. They've set up an event here and they share what they've learned, and everyone can learn from that.
So blockchain's shared infrastructure, but if you don't have people developing on it, nothing gets done. So by building the largest community of developers, they're going to get the most done.
I just love how accessible this community is, where developers are willing to take a couple hours off their project to help new developers in the space figure out holes in their smart contracts or how to make their dApp better.
So I love that, but there's definitely a problem in terms of pipeline and knowledge sharing and expanding the community. How are we getting new people here, and how are we training new developers to grow and to really get to mass adoption and scale better?
I love that point. That's great.
Mass adoption is tough, But we do find a slew of projects built on Ethereum making major headway here. Sure, you see Vitalik roaming the halls and listening in on a number of presentations. All around, you'll see people and projects you'll recognize. The Ambrosis team, hiring apparently, ADEX, Omiza Go, Coinbase, Cosmos, Funfair, Gnosis, and Golem. Upstairs, you see the likes of Kyber, Maker, Polymath, Quantstamp, Quorum, Singular DTV, and Chainlink. Here, creating a stir, making a major announcement acquiring Cornell's Town Crier technology to a standing room full of devs ready to build on it.
So what we're doing is we're combining two of the best projects that are focusing on getting data to contracts, and we're basically combining them into one great project, essentially Chainlink.
And how are you enjoying DevCon so far?
I think it's good. I mean, there's a lot of very like-minded and focused people here that want to see smart contracts become something useful in a way that impacts industries and society. And I think that DevCon and the Ethereum team, they've done a very good job of bringing all these people together. So the aggregate kind of combination is a big step forward.
This is the type of work and announcements happening here day after day.
What is your biggest hope for Serenity?
The hard fork to Serenity is going to be one of the biggest, first of all, trials for proof of stake protocols in general that we see. And it's also going to be one of the biggest trials for like the success of the Ethereum ecosystem. And I would rather take that take a very long time than be rushed out the door to satisfy bag holders.
This whole rush that we had this year with transactions per second, and this blockchain does this and this blockchain does that, is pretty irrelevant. And seeing how many people, there's like 3,000 people here, when the markets are down, that, as I've said, are building stuff. So I think we need to be patient and wait for it to get there, because we need scalability for proper dApps to work and to get adoption.
So I'm excited to wait for like the next year and see things as they unfold.
So that's it here from the Ethereum dev community at DevCon. We're off to watch the sunset and check out Prague by night. Back to you, Ron.
Thanks, Abby. So that's all the tech and the community. Now let's talk trading and get some expert perspectives from the traders just like you. First up, with tens of thousands of followers, it's Crypto Bobby. Crypto Bobby, it's such a pleasure having you back on Crypto Trader.
Yeah,
we've been here for a few days now, and we've seen Ethereum's vision, we've seen Ethereum 2.0. How excited are you?
I'm pretty excited about it. I think there's a lot of really like a scalability perspective. When is it actually going to happen, and how quickly can Ethereum actually innovate and get to that Ethereum 2.0?
So when you talk about when, we're actually juggling, we keep forgetting that Ethereum is actually a very young technology. And do you think that as investors and developers, we may be being a little bit impatient?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing, especially with Ethereum, is that there's so much, you're here and there's however many, 3,000 plus people here. There's so much kind of work and development that's already being done on top of the platform that it can't necessarily maybe be rushed to something that's not already live. And then that's the big question too, at least to me, is there's so many other platforms out there that are trying to either compete with Ethereum, beat Ethereum, whatever it might be. Can those actually innovate at scale prior to Ethereum getting to that 2.0 state that we're talking about?
So seeing what we've seen here, 3,000 PhDs running around here, for lack of a better word, do you think that any of the other protocols can beat the Ethereum community?
I don't know. I have a little bit of doubt, but I do think that the level of technical skill set here is the biggest moat that Ethereum has in comparison to some of the other platforms.
So you ask yourself the question, with all these resources, how can they fail?
If other platforms deliver a better solution and make it easier for all these people to move over in a somewhat seamless manner, I think that people love Ethereum, they love the Ethereum community, but if it gets to a point where a year, 2 years, 3 years from now we're still talking about Ethereum 2.0 and it's not there yet, that's probably going to be an issue. So.
Now, how important is Vitalik in the community? He came on as a central point of the community and he highlighted the vision for Ethereum 2.0.
I think from like a visibility perspective, that's probably true. I know he's spoken about it, and you see it on Twitter all the time and things like that, where Vitalik is the centralized figurehead, and how can you have a decentralized network with Vitalik as kind of the main person there? I do think it seems like, and it was even a conversation on Twitter today, that he's very cognizant of that and doesn't necessarily wants to spread that out as much as possible, which I think is something that you want to see, is not just be Vitalik the CEO of Ethereum, but you want to have a kind of a more decentralized leadership community, or
Now-
at least perception-wise.
Now, prices don't excite anyone anymore because whenever we look at our Blockfolio, the prices are always the same. It's almost like they've all become stable coins.
Bitcoin's a stable coin.
Bitcoin's a stable coin. Ethereum is around $200.
Yeah.
We don't even have to check. The question is, if prices aren't the exciting part anymore, when you look around here, what excites you?
I think that we've gotten to the point where last year valuations far exceeded the actual usability of these applications, and fundraising was just going nuts for anything. I do think now we're looking to a point where it's like, all right, all these companies have raised money, and how are people actually going to get users onto whether it's dApps or just kind of convert this ecosystem to the next level? What is the killer app? And I think everybody's going to try and to work towards that to the next step.
Stop talking about when Lambo and when Moon, even on a show like this, even on Crypto Trader. And we can start talking about how we're actually going to get blockchain adopted. Now, I've been walking around here, I've seen some amazing applications. I'm interested to hear from you what you think the verticals are going to be that are going to bring mass adoption.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people talk about gaming, and I've seen some good rebuttals as far as, gaming is popular without blockchain or without blockchain or cryptocurrency integrated into it somehow. So maybe that's one thing. But I do think that as the technology advances, and even certain things like outside of Ethereum, like I think EOS has done pretty well with certain aspects of gaming. A lot of people point to that, and even some of like the kind of not necessarily speculation type apps, but almost like gambling type type apps as well might be interesting to see. And then probably the last thing, and it's not necessarily as much of a discussion here, but some of the work around tokenized securities and some of the protocols that are being built with Ethereum, I think are pretty cool and pretty interesting.
Bobby, it's always a great pleasure having you on
Absolutely,
Crypto Trader.
appreciate
Thank you very
it.
much.
Thanks a lot.
From mass adoption and trading with Crypto Bobby, let's talk mass viewership with some of the biggest YouTubers out there. So here at the Ethereum DevCon in Prague, and I'm with the two most powerful YouTubers on crypto. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So
Happy to be here.
We've been here for 3 days now. We've seen the vision for Ethereum 2.0. We've seen 3,000 PhDs walking around here. Are you guys bullish about Ethereum?
Ooh, great question. I'm absolutely excited. And I love how they're kind of putting it into a different phase and just like trying to move forward. I mean, that's always really good. Like, just dealing with the mistakes they made. They sang a song about it, and now let's move forward.
That's a good point, because they actually tend to announce their mistakes and the flaws, and they joke about it, which is something you don't see in all these shilly crypto communities. And one of the things that I was saying is, like, everyone's trying to find the next smart contract platform, but everybody pretty much knows already that nothing else is going to be Bitcoin. So I'm super stoked about Ethereum. This is for me like coming home, because whenever I come, you sense an energy, and I was talking about this to somebody yesterday actually, where usually when you talk to developers, they're always very like hands-on, very present, like this is my job, very realistic, very grounded. Whereas like you see the same thing with Ethereum, but obviously PhDs, top-notch developers, and they also develop though with a vision, with a real meta look and an understanding of finance, economics. Most of these guys have been in the space a lot longer than many other projects, so I always get so excited about the whole space as well, but especially Ethereum whenever I come out.
I think one thing that's undisputed is from a smart contract platform, no protocol has a bigger community than the one we're seeing here today, in terms of number of people and number of brains and number of PhDs. Do you think that a platform with a lot of money can beat a platform with a lot of developers?
It's a good question.
And I think it's very interesting because like in media, we always say, okay, we want to say, okay, they're competing against each other. They're trying to beat this. But here you actually see, I saw some EOS developers, I saw some Bitcoin Cash developers. Actually in the developer space, they realize that it's not just about, having one solution to everything. I think this is like this false feeling that, just one platform for everyone. I don't agree with that, absolutely. There's not going to be just one form of value storage or one smart contract platform. People are working together here, and I really admire that. So I think like, in the end, we're going to have a way to work together, even though we might not be the best of friends. But
Omar, what do you think?
That's a good point, and it calls to mind kind of when a lot of the coins were coming out last year, everyone was looking for developers, but nobody could find good developers because they're already working on something, and usually out of passion, because these guys are already free. They've been into crypto for a while, so they're pursuing love, and I don't think money actually is the primary driver for these guys. I actually think it's wanting to I know it's often repeated, but change the world.
So they're missionaries, not mercenaries, as one of my previous guests said.
Exactly, man. I don't think much money will change these guys. And money doesn't make you a better developer, I would say. If anything, it makes you a worse developer.
So now, prices aren't exciting for us anymore, because every time we look at our Blockfolio, the prices are the same. what excites you when you walk around here? What excites you?
It's a great question because like no one talks about prices here. So this is a conference. You think so many people are gathering. We'll be like checking our blockfolios every hour. No. What's exciting now is be building because we know that if the next bull cycle comes, we have something to show for it.
What are the most exciting verticals that you believe are getting close to mass adoption level?
I actually think like anti-counterfeit is really huge for me because for that you need multiple parties to work together to track the supply chain to make sure that the products that are being delivered, they're not fake.
Aman, what excites you when you walk around here today? You've been to a lot of conferences, a lot of DevCons.
Not as many as you.
What excites you?
Just going around last year a lot, it was always about the ICOs and the booths full of ICOs, but now it's like...
There's not a single ICO
I
yet.
have yet to be shilled an ICO, really, believe it or not. But more it's about promotion about the product they've already built or something I've already followed for a long time and now I can actually use. So I'm looking at Maker and I'm hearing about something called synthetic tokens and new layers. I'm like, wow.
Okay, so now we've been here for 3 days, we've seen the vision, we've seen the developers. Are we buying Ethereum at $200 or are we not buying Ethereum at $200?
Actually, I've been going for the long run, so I've been setting out like these kind of cost average, just every month, just buying a little bit, buying a little bit.
Are you buying at $200? Are you entering Ethereum?
Personally, just to be honest, I'm not, only because I don't have extra money. But if I did, I would absolutely be dollar cost averaging right now, buying a little bit over time. But I still have high hopes for flippening, where Ethereum comes out on top. I don't think they're aiming to be a payment platform, but realistically, oil is expensive, and so will commodities be.
You still have hope for a flippening.
Damn,
we'll see, man. I'll call it right here.
Damn.
I can still see it happening, man. When I see what's going on here, I see so much more, some more vision and drive rather than just rhetoric and cultish behavior. I actually see developers getting involved because it's not just a few core developers that can build on it, but opening up the doors, which is what I thought the whole crypto movement was about. I think Satoshi would be proud.
Guys, thank you very much for coming on Crypto Trader. Thank you.
Cheers. You, man. Thanks for having us, man.
Thank you. So there you have it, a summary of the whole week at DevCon 4 in Prague in less than an hour. I guess Satoshi would be proud of what the Ethereum community are building, unless of course Craig Wright is Satoshi. But then again, I don't think Craig Wright is Satoshi. What is your take on Ethereum 2.0? Let me know on Twitter. I'm going to be on Twitter at CryptoManRun. Until next week, when I'll be back here in the Johannesburg studio, I'm going to be on Twitter at CryptoManRun. And you should trade well, my friends.
Crypto Trader is proudly brought to you by Element, a full-service investment bank for the digital token capital markets.